So we've got our groovy little app here. We can tab through our UI here and switch between the list, and we can add a new task and so on. But what I want to do is be able to go to each of these individual tasks, select them and interact with them. So the simplest thing would be to mark them as completed or incomplete at this point. So in our app state, I'm going to add a selected task index of 0. I'm going to come down here into our keyboard events. I'm going to say if app state.focus is equal to our task list. So we only want these methods to fire if we are focused here. We're just going to switch on the key.name. So I'll have a case for up. We'll have a case for down. We'll have a case for space. That'll be our mark it as completed, or toggle it, really, is what we're going to do there. So in each of these cases, we're trying to update the app state's selected task index. So we're going to say app state.selected task index is equal to, and then we're just going to max on this guy. So it'll either be 0 or the current minus 1. And we're good to go there. And then on down, so very similar, we're going to say selected task index is equal to math.min. And we'll say we're either at the task.length minus 1 or current one plus 1. So whichever one of those is the least. Now in space, we're just going to get our task with the current selected task index. And as long as we have that, we'll say task.status is equal, and we're just going to toggle on this. So if it's completed, we'll say active. Otherwise, we'll say completed. And since we're declaring this here, we're going to throw this in a block. Going to format this with biome. And there we go. We have our basic up, down, and toggle the status of the task. So we're not going to see any of that in the UI right now. So now we need to actually get that going. Before we exit out of this guy, we are going to refresh our task list. We're just going to return. So I'll jump to our refresh task list, which is where we actually iterate through those tasks. And I have a reason. I'm going to update it from T to actually calling it task. So everything's working just fine. So we're going to figure out which of our guys, or if our current one is selected. So we'll say const is selected is equal to, we want to make sure we're actually focused on this element. And then we want to say, and I is equal to appstate.selected task index. And then just so we can see that down here in our foreground, we'll say is selected. It'll be yellow. Otherwise, we'll stick with the blue. So there we go. I can add a task. I can tab to our task list, and I can cycle through these guys. Add a task, tab, and we can move through them. So that's all great, but it's not an awesome UI. And what I want to do is have like a little checkbox at the beginning, and then after it have its priority, and maybe the priority in a different color, and then have the date. And I could do that in a bunch of different ways, but a lot of them require me to have a whole bunch of these text renderables, and those end up wanting to display in block mode unless you wrap them in another flex. So that would end up being a lot of text renderables. Fortunately, there is a way to do some inline styling. So we're going to bring in this function called FG for foreground. We're going to bring in bold, and we're going to bring in this T, which is this template function thing that lets you take a template literal, and then it generates what's called a styled text object. So we're going to jump back to our refresh list. And now one problem with this is it is basically in a template literal. So you end up having to make it one giant string. We're going to try to circumvent that by isolating a whole bunch of variables. So we already have it selected. Okay, we're going to call this checkbox is equal to task.status. If it's completed, it'll be something, and then it'll be something else. So that's our empty guy. And in this one, we're going to drop this in, which is like a little check mark symbol. Then we're going to have a cursor. So it's going to be like a little pointer on each line. So this one will be easy. We'll say cursor equals is selected. And it'll be, we'll do that guy. Otherwise, it'll just be two empty spaces. Okay, now we're going to set up some colors. Say cursor color. We're going to have to do this whether it's selected or not. We're still going to have this stylized in our UI. So we're really just trying to make a blue one or one that you don't really see or care about. So again, is selected, theme.blue. Otherwise, theme.dim. Whatever. We're not really going to see that one. We're going to have a status color. If it's completed, we'll say theme.green. Otherwise, just regular text. I have a title color. And this is more or less what we were doing in our previous attempt where we did theme yellow or blue. So we'll do blue or text. And then lastly, we're going to have a date string. It's going to be a big long string, so we want to trim that down. So we're going to say date string is equal to task.created at .to ISO, and we just slice that by 10. Okay, so there's all of our variables. This is the best I came up with to simplify what I'm about to do. So I'm going to say content is equal to, and I'm going to break this out at first so we can read it a little better, but it is going to end up needing to be one line. So I'm using our T function, and then I'm going to use our first instance of the FG function. And the way that works is we do FG, we pass in a color, and then we execute that with our content. So here we're going to have our cursor color, and then we're going to have our cursor. We're going to follow that up with our status color. We're going to use bold on our, what do we call it, checkbox. I'm going to have our title color and our task.title. And now we're going to have our priority. And I went ahead and in our utils, I created these priority colors. So for high, a red, medium, yellow, and low is green. So I'm going to bring those into our app. I put it in utils. I don't know if that really makes sense, but now we have that. So it's just an enum. So to get that, we're going to say priority color and then whatever our priority currently is. And then we'll drop that text in there. And then the last one will be our date string. So we'll just do dim on that. And then we don't actually need this FG on the text renderable. We're just passing in our content. I'm going to drop this in without putting on one line just so you see the problem. And there's the problem. It's going to move these guys. It's actually rendering it fine, but it's going to put them all block display. So we're just going to put all these guys on one line. I might need to add a little space in there. Let's see. Yeah, so we need a space for the date. We need a space for the priority. And we'll do a space for the title. Okay, so now I can come up here. I can move up and down. and I can hit space to update that guy's status. So we are going to add one more. We're going to jump over to our keyboard events, and inside this task list, right after the space one, we're going to drop in this one for P. This is very similar to some other stuff we've done, where I'm just cycling through the various priorities on the P key and then refreshing the task list. Actually, I'm going to leave that there. I don't know if I need to do that or not. But now when I come up here, I can still check it off and check it on. And I can hit P to cycle through those three priorities, and we can see our different colors showing up.